Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
So again, maybe let me hide these things for you a little bit. And let's just focus on two profiles. So now I'm going to try and argue that you can actually find a voter who is pivotal for any candidate, and let's just continue to focus on the candidate B. Okay. And I'm looking at two profiles here, which if you notice are extreme for the candidate B. So in the first profile, everybody ranks B at the bottom, and in the last profile, everyone ranks B on the top. Okay. And the rest of the profile is chosen arbitrarily. I just made it up, and it turns out that for this argument, it doesn't matter how the other candidates are ranked. And again, just in the interest of fitting everything in the slide, I'm only introducing two other candidates, which is the minimum that I need from the assumptions of the statement. But everything goes through in exactly the same way with more candidates. Okay. All right. So what is written in pink at the bottom is the output of the mechanism, and notice that I know for sure that the mechanism must place B at the bottom in the first profile, and it must place B at the top in the last profile. Okay, the rest of what it does is a mystery to me. I don't really know, but this I know for sure. Why? By unanimity. Yeah. If B was placed anywhere else, right, then look at the candidate who is in fact placed at the bottom, and let that candidate be A, for instance. But notice that every voter has ranked A ahead of B because B is at the bottom. So the fact that B is being ranked anywhere other than the last position would contradict unanimity in this case. And a symmetric argument applies for the last profile where B is on the top. Is this clear? Yeah. Okay, so to find our pivotal voter, what we are going to do is take a little trip from the profile that is on the left to the profile on the right by slowly changing the position of B in each voter's vote. Okay. So what we are going to do is, in the first step, we are going to ask the first voter to promote B to the first position. In the second step, we are going to ask the first and second voters to promote B to the top position, and so on, which will gradually morph the first profile to the last one. Okay? Yeah, that's the plan. So this is what happens, and again, we just not have it. So these are the interim profiles. So notice that this is actually executing what I just suggested. So in the second profile, the first voter ranks B on the top, and the other three voters continue to have the same vote as before. In the second profile, the second voter has joined the first voter in ranking B on the top, and so on. And now let's just study the output of the mechanism. We know that B is, what is the nature of B in all the intermediate profiles? It is polarizing, right? Yeah, it's always either at the top or the bottom, although it's maybe a little different, it's always at the top or at the bottom. So B is polarizing in every profile, and our first observation tells us that the mechanism also therefore must place B either at the top or the bottom when it works with these profiles. And in particular, in the first profile, the output had B at the bottom, and in the last profile, the output had B at the top, which means that it makes sense to talk about the first point where B's fate transitioned. Okay, is that clear? So at some point, B switched from being the least ranked candidate by the mechanism to being the top ranked candidate by the mechanism. Right. If nothing else, it happened at the very end, but it's well defined to talk about the first point at which this transition happened. Yes? So in this example, let's say that the transition happened between the second and the third profile. Okay. So up to the second profile, the mechanism was placing B at the bottom, and from the third profile onwards, it started placing B on the top. Yeah. Is there a natural choice for the voter that we are looking for? We said we are looking for a voter who has a major influence on the fate of B. If you had to pick a voter in this example, it would be the second voter, because it was when the second voter decided to promote B that B got promoted in the output of the mechanism as well. So that seems like a natural choice for whom we are going to declare as the pivotal voter for B. And in fact, this exactly fits the definition of a B pivotal voter. So if you go back here, we said there exists a profile P and a profile Q, which are identical but for the vote of the pivotal voter. In both these profiles, B is polarizing, and in one of them B emerges on the top and in the other B emerges at the bottom, right? This was exactly our definition of a pivotal voter, and here are your profiles P and Q. It's the second and the third profiles with respect to which the second voter is the polarizing voter, is the pivotal voter. Yeah? So how did it go from star star B to B star star? Is that your question? So all I'm saying is that in the first profile the output is star star B, and in the last profile the output is B star star. That's for sure because of unanimity. We also know that for all the intermediate profiles it's going to be either star star B or B star star, because that was something that we showed a few minutes ago. We said that if B is polarizing and the mechanism is unanimous and IIA, then in the output also B is either ranked at the top or it's ranked at the bottom. Okay, so each one of these outputs has this form. It's either B star star or star star B. Okay, so you can make this list of the outcomes, and what I'm suggesting is that we focus at the first place where you switch from star star B to B star star. And at least one such switch must happen, because you know that you started with star star B and you ended with B star star, right? So even if you don't see a switch, you know, in the first few iterations, I mean, it will definitely come at the end, right? So there must be, so it's well defined to talk about the first place where this transition happened, right? The first pair of profiles for which in the first profile you had a star star B and in the next profile you had a B star star. And such a profile certainly exists, right? Because as I said, you just make, so this is your list of profiles where B is slowly transitioning. I mean, B is becoming more and more popular as we go further down. More and more voters are promoting B to the top, right? And we know that in the beginning it was star star B and in the end it was B star star, right? So in this journey, somewhere the outcome flipped, somewhere the fate of B changed, right? And all I'm saying is, let's identify the first place where that happened, the first place where it went from being star star B to B star star. Yeah? And I'm saying if you focus on just those two profiles, because our changes have been very, very nominal, you will see that in these two profiles, it's only one voter whose vote is different, because that's just the nature of the construction, right? And that is the voter that we could declare as being the pivotal voter for the candidate B, because that was our definition of a pivotal voter. We said that if there exist two profiles which are identical except for the vote of the pivotal voter, in both of which B is polarizing, but where the outcome of the mechanism is different for the voter, for the candidate B, then we say that this voter is pivotal, right? And that's exactly what is happening here. Yeah. So I don't know if that answers your question, does it? Okay, so we can discuss more offline, yeah, if this was not clear. Okay. But anything else that seems shady about this argument, or is this clear? Yeah, all we have argued is the existence of a voter that is pivotal for the candidate B, where the notion of being pivotal was defined exactly in a way that patches well with the two profiles that we are staring at here. Is the second voter also a dictator? Yeah, I mean, we still need a little bit of argument to be able to say that. It certainly seems like the second voter is considerably influential, because she managed to, just by changing her vote, she managed to flip the outcome of B by a large amount. And that is in fact what we are going to argue next, that this voter can be shown to be a dictatorial voter. So let's maybe make some progress in that direction. So I'll just take another 10 minutes, because that way we'll be able to wrap up this argument and we won't have to leave it halfway. Yeah. Okay, so so let B be the candidate that we have been working with so far. Okay, and K is our friend who is the B pivotal voter. Yeah, I want to argue that the voter K is in fact what we call decisive for any pair of candidates different from B, both of whom are different from B. So what does it mean for a voter to be decisive? It's this dictatorial behavior where we say that if the voter says A over C, the mechanism says A over C. If the voter says C over A, then the mechanism also says C over A. So the mechanism just tags along with what this voter is saying for this pair of candidates. That is the claim. Yeah. Okay. So let's work with an arbitrary profile at this point, where we want to argue that this happens. So notice that, let's just recall that the kth voter for us was the second voter. Let's just work with that. And in this case, the second voter is saying A over C, and we want to argue that the mechanism indeed outputs A over C for this arbitrary profile. Yeah. So again, we are going to fall back on both the voter being pivotal as well as the mechanism being unanimous and IIA. So do you want to take a couple of minutes perhaps to think about how can you argue that the voter must in fact, I mean the mechanism must in fact rank A over C? So okay, a first step is, okay, so what we're going to do is we have this arbitrary profile where we are saying, okay, this is a fixed but arbitrary profile on which I want to argue that the mechanism when applied to this profile will actually just follow the instructions of the B pivotal voter, even when it is making a decision about A versus C. That is what I want to argue, right? What I have at hand is these profiles that were witnessing why we declared the kth voter to be the pivotal voter, right? So in particular, here is a profile where we said the transition happened, right? So when the pivotal voter placed B on the top, right, the mechanism was compelled to output B star star. Okay, this was the critical profile for us, and the profile just before this was also, I mean, those were the two profiles of interest. Okay, and I'm going to start by working with these profiles because we understand a little bit about the behavior of the mechanism on these profiles. Whereas on the arbitrary profile, I really don't know what is going on. So the idea will be to take the profiles which we understand well and try to massage them to look like the arbitrary profile that we have been given to work with. Yeah. And then hope that our understanding of the mechanism can be dragged along the way by making use of IIA and unanimity. Okay. All right, so we have a profile that we understand well, where because the pivotal voter has placed B on the top, the output is B star star. What I'm going to do is keep the positions of B fixed as they are, but the positions of A and C I'm going to copy over from the arbitrary profile that has been given to me. Okay. So this profile is one step closer to looking like the arbitrary profile that I have to deal with. Notice that this output stays the same. In particular, it stays the same to the extent that B continues to be ranked on the top because of IIA, right? Yeah, because B's position did not change at all, and therefore in particular B's position relative to A or relative to C did not change. So there is no reason to expect that it would change in the outcome. Okay. So maybe let's just take a minute here to think about what else can we do. What do we want to say? We really are interested in talking about the output with respect to A and C on this profile, right? So we want to be able to argue that the mechanism in fact follows the ordering of the pivotal voter for A and C. Is there any other profile that you have at hand which you can use to make that happen? Not other profile, but remember the kind of manipulations that we were doing earlier. Is there a small tweak that you can make to this profile to see that the output must in fact be A over C? Because right now we have a star star sitting there, which is a little annoying. We really have no understanding of what the mechanism is doing here. Yeah. Sorry? So are you suggesting we look at the third voter, or? Okay, what would you like to do? I mean, do you want to change this profile or? Right, so we change the preference of the pivotal voter to ACB, is that what you're suggesting? Okay, the third voter, okay. So the third voter you want to change to ACB, okay. So you've essentially switched the places of A and C. Oh, is this to achieve unanimity on A and C? Okay, I see. The only concern with that is A, it is kind of specific to the nature of the arbitrary profile that we started with. So I suppose in the arbitrary profile, if there were more voters that voted the other way, you would go and change all of them. And then, okay. But you still have to relate this to the, so on this modified profile by unanimity, the mechanism will output AC. But you need to connect it back to the arbitrary profile that you started with to say that that's what it's going to do there as well. So, So I think that is a good attempt, but maybe what we need is something just slightly different. So I'm going to go back to focusing on the pivotal voter, because that was a voter that, whose behavior we understood between this profile and the profile that came just before it, right? So what happens if, so notice that the pivotal voter is voting for A over C. This is by assumption, right? Because we are saying that if the pivotal voter places A ahead of C, then in the output also we will get A ahead of C. So we know that A is ahead of C in the vote of the pivotal voter. Let us take the candidate B and downgrade it so that it appears just below A, but still ahead of C. Okay, in the vote of the pivotal voter. Let's demote B a little bit so that it falls below A, but nonetheless it still appears ahead of C. This is possible to do because A appeared ahead of C in the vote of the pivotal voter. Okay. What do you think is the output of this mechanism as far as A and C are concerned? So notice that this profile is, so let's just focus on B and C for a moment. As far as B and C is concerned, the relative ordering of B and C is same for all the voters between this one and the profile that was just prior, right? Because we did not change anything. We did not change anything else, and B also stopped short of going below C in the vote of the pivotal voter, right? So between B and C, B should still be ranked ahead of C, right? Because B was ranked on the top in the previous profile and nothing changed between B and C. So B should still be ranked ahead of C. What is interesting is what happened between B and A. So between B and A, the preference of the pivotal voter has certainly switched, so we cannot apply the same argument. But between B and A, can you think of a profile which we understand nicely, whose relative ordering on B and A is the same as the relative ordering that we are staring at right now? Yeah? So this profile is it one of these profiles? So notice that these two profiles are exactly the same for every other voter apart from the pivotal one, and therefore it is the same here also, because that's okay. So let me not say that it's not exactly the same here, but what I want to say is that here the pivotal voter actually ranks A ahead of B, right? And everyone else has the same relative ranking of B versus A, right? We did not change anything with regards to that. So B was on the top for all the voters who are above the pivotal voter and is at the bottom for all the voters below the pivotal voter. And that is something, that's a property that we have here as well, even after making our tweak, right? So between B and A, the relative ordering is the same for all voters other than the pivotal voter, and for the pivotal voter also the relative ordering is the same, because in that previous profile B was being ranked at the bottom by the previous voter, right? So by the pivotal voter. So since B was ranked at the bottom, in particular A was ahead of B, right? And that's what we did here. Our maneuver was just to place B below A, right? And because of this, we know that because the voter was pivotal, in that previous profile B was being ranked at the bottom, and in particular that meant that A was being ranked above B in that profile. So as far as A and B are concerned, what should be the output of the mechanism on this profile? Again using IIA with the previous profile. So if you compare this profile that you're seeing here with this one, the second profile here, my claim is that in fact the relative ordering of B and A is exactly the same for every voter. Okay, it's clearly the same for every voter other than the pivotal voter. For the pivotal voter, B was ranked at the bottom here, so A was greater than B. And in the other profile that we artificially constructed, we in fact pushed B below A. So even here A is ranked ahead of B by the pivotal voter. So the relative orderings between A and B are exactly the same in this profile that we are staring at and in the penultimate critical profile that we had in the previous screen. So in that profile, remember that the mechanism output be at the bottom. So what will the mechanism output here between B and A? Will it output A ahead of B or will it output B ahead of A? A ahead of B, right? Because B was at the bottom there. So in particular, A was ahead of B there. And by IIA, the mechanism is forced to respect the same ordering. So A is ranked ahead of B here as well. Okay. So A is ahead of B, and we also argued that B is ahead of C, right? Because we said that this profile is identical to the critical profile because B did not drop below C. So that means that B is standing guard in between A and C, where A is going above B and C is going below B in the output of the mechanism, right? Which means that by transitivity effectively A is ahead of C in the mechanism, in the output of the mechanism, right? So that's written out a little more explicitly here, but that's essentially the argument, okay? So we know that the mechanism outputs A ahead of C in this profile, and now by IIA, so notice that this profile looks the same as the arbitrary profile on A and C. It looks a little different perhaps with respect to the positions of B, but now you can, now that you know that this mechanism is going to give you A over C in this profile, you can change the positions of B to make it fit the arbitrary profile without affecting the outcome of A and C, because the position of B does not matter. I mean, it mattered to our argument, we used it to basically draw this conclusion about A versus C, but you can adjust the positions of B and make the profile on the right look exactly like the profile on the left with the same outcome, A being ahead of C, which means that on the arbitrary profile, the mechanism actually output the same ordering of A versus C as the pivotal voter did. Yeah. Okay. So I think I've really stretched my time a little bit here. I'll just make this last point quickly. So the only thing left is to argue, so we wanted to say that the voter that was pivotal for the candidate B is in fact a dictator. And right now this is looking more and more promising because this voter is able to influence the output of the mechanism for any pair of candidates that is different from B, right? Yeah, so the voting rule is just going to follow this guy for any of these other pairs. What happens for pairs involving B? That's the only thing that is left. Once we see that for pairs involving B also the voter is able to dictate the output, the voter becomes an absolute dictator, okay? And this is actually pretty easy to argue, and here is a quick reasoning which you can think about a little more later. But the idea is that if you're looking at a pair which involves the voter B, which involves the candidate B, and you're looking at the B pivotal voter, let's just forget about the B pivotal voter for a moment and let's think about this pair AB relative to a C pivotal voter, where C is a candidate different from A and B. And by repeating all the arguments that we have made so far, we know that the C pivotal voter will actually dictate the fate of A versus B, okay? But now think about, can the C pivotal voter really be different from the B pivotal voter, right? Because the B pivotal voter does control what happens between C and B on these two profiles here, which I have recollected from our past arguments. So in particular, if the C pivotal voter was different from the B pivotal voter, then the C pivotal voter will fail on these profiles, because here the control is really coming from the B pivotal voter, right? And the C pivotal voter actually has the same preference for A and B, and she is not able to influence the outcome. The outcome is actually being controlled by the B pivotal voter. So it's, I mean, maybe I'm rushing a little bit, but it's quite straightforward to see that the B pivotal and the C pivotal voters must be the same. But by arguing with respect to the C pivotal voter, which is in fact the same as the B pivotal one, but you see that by repeating the arguments we had prior, the C pivotal voter in fact controls the fate of A and B as well. So this is just a small technicality to make sure that all our cases are covered. But this is essentially a proof sketch for Arrow's theorem. As I said, I wasn't terribly formal about having a larger number of candidates in the fray, but that is something that can be very easily accounted for. There isn't any actual loss of information here. So when we come back, we will talk about other axioms and how we could potentially work around some of these issues. But for now, we will take a break.